Chaos and quick cost cutting have defined the Trump administration's first months in office. So when rumors spread today that billionaire Elon Musk's team was making good on promises to make cuts at NOAA in Boulder, Coloradans responded. More than 100 people spontaneously gathered outside at the news, including some of the state's top Democrats. Except what they'd heard was happening inside the building was not real. Our Mark Salinger has that.
In a time filled with uncertainty,
thank you for coming out on a moment's notice.
People gathered on a sidewalk in Boulder with conviction.
I've heard that DOGE is here today.
So we had credible information at 10:08 this morning, and we had a sizable amount of people here by 11.
The word went out that they're here, and so I spread the word around and showed up.
Kenneth, Barb, Rob, and more than 100 others heard that Elon Musk and DOGE were inside NOAA, gutting critical science programs.
Through many credible sources, including employees that are inside, DOGE is here gathering data and possibly shutting the organization down, but I can't promise that.
Seemingly looking for employees, and employers are hiding.
Elon Musk has got to go, hey, hey!
Even in a time of uncertainty, one thing is clear. Rumors spread quickly in the middle of chaos.
That apparently is not true.
It is who?
Not according to the security people.
At an impromptu sidewalk protest, former Congressman David Skaggs came in search of facts.
Well, all I know is from the folks that are in the security shack that nothing has happened today. They're not on site at the moment.
But few people made it past the security gate.
I had an opportunity to go inside to visit with the folks at NIST and the folks at NOAA.
Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse reported back with the truth that he found.
Today, at least, no personnel from DOGE have appeared on the campus. And so we know there have been conflicting reports about that.
It doesn't take much to trigger a reaction in Boulder about this place in particular.
Today, uncertainty led to an unfounded fear.
But I felt it important to be here for my colleagues, for other federal employees.
Next time, the rumors could be true.
There's a sense of wanting to defend what's here by our presence, just to let the world know that this is happening.
So the obvious question here is, how did this spread to the point where you have hundreds of people with signs and flags on a sidewalk protesting something that isn't actually happening? From the people that I spoke with, they all heard from various Democratic groups in Boulder County notifying them that DOGE was at NOAA today. It spread through word of mouth, email, social media, and of course, there could very well be a day soon where DOGE indeed does show up and tries to gut NOAA, as they've said.
I mean, and it wasn't like they were storming the building like the J6 rioters, right? They were outside saying, we don't like this, which I suppose they had bad information, right? They were misled, but they still don't like what they think is going to happen there.
And they believe that at one day it could indeed happen there. But something worth pointing out is how difficult it is to get information. I mean, you have 150 people outside saying, I don't know what's going on necessarily. And you have one person, an elected congressman, that can actually go inside and figure out what's going on.
Honestly, it's very similar to what we saw in Aurora with Buckley Space Force Base when Jason Crow had to show up and go inside to try and get people information.
In a moment's notice like
that. All right. Mark Salinger, thank you very much. Federal judge is skeptical of the Trump administration's promise to provide due process before deporting Venezuelan immigrants out of Colorado. She seems inclined to follow the Supreme Court's lead after those justices blocked expedited deportations from a facility in Texas over the weekend. Now, looming over all of this, obviously, is the Trump administration's increasing willingness, it seems, to defy the rule of law and judges. The fight is over Trump's use of the 200-year-old Alien Enemies Act to send away Venezuelans without giving them a chance to tell a court that they are not actually part of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. The Supreme Court said the deportees must have due process first. Some of those removals have now been halted by the court after immigration lawyers argued that their clients were only given deportation notices in English. A federal judge in Colorado has already temporarily blocked the administration from using the Alien Enemies Act to deport 2 men detained in Aurora. She's now considering whether to extend that order. An attorney for the administration says they're working on providing notices in languages other than English. Democrats at the state capitol are moving ahead on a bill to limit immigration agents' access to places like schools and hospitals. A bill that passed the state Senate today would restrict what info schools, colleges, and healthcare facilities could share, and it would require them to turn away ICE agents if they don't have a federal warrant. Some places already do that. The bill would tell local governments and state agencies to limit the personal information about people that they give to the feds. Democrats adjusted the bill today to make it clear it won't impede immigration agents who have warrants, who are doing criminal investigations. Republicans at the state capitol, who do not have the votes to stop anything unless Democrats are divided on an issue, they said the federal government should be deciding how and where immigration raids happen.
We're in unprecedented times where people are being unjustly targeted, incarcerated, removed, deported, and we sit in a position where we may be able to push back and help out and provide some protection.
I believe this undermines federal immigration enforcement, and at the end of the day, immigration laws are federal policy.
Bill still has to pass the full House before it would go to Democratic Governor Jared Polis for his signature. He has said publicly that he supports the deportation of violent criminals, but does not want mass roundups of people who are simply here without authorization. This bill at the State House would also protect people from warrantless immigration roundups at courthouses. Community advocates were protesting a separate issue in Douglas County last week when they say that they watched Hispanic men get detained by people wearing masks. They shared the video with our Angela McCall.
Outside of the Douglas County Courthouse on Thursday, a moment that will be hard to forget for community activist Median Schaffner.
And so
they just came out the courthouse.
It was very clear that they were after the men that they had told to get on the ground.
They've been scoping around the corner and all that.
She was the one who captured this video.
This is not right.
I would have literally thought that they were kidnapping these three men.
Masked men believed to be ICE agents.
This is wild.
Detaining at least 3 people outside of the courthouse.
Watching those individuals being dehumanized the way that they were and being taken and having to scream for their life, that is something that I'll never normalize in my heart.
What brought her there in the first place was a rally for Jalen Sebron, who was shot and killed by police.
We are now witnessing, and this family is having to hold the trauma of watching yet another family that is going to be stripped of dignity.
Courthouses were once considered sensitive areas, off limits to ICE agents. Immigration advocates say those rules gone.
It's making community unsafe because now all of those people who are by this courthouse, if they were victims and they were immigrants themselves, they're going to be wondering if they're going to be safe for testimony. They're going to be wondering if they're going to be safe for reporting the next crime that happens to them.
Andrea Loya with Casa de Paz says this is an opportunity for people to know their rights. But even then, it's hard when ICE agents aren't following what once was protocol before.
It's terrifying. And I think now what we're really seeing is that there's no rules. They are not playing by any kind of rule.
This is so lame, y'all.
With the continued killings and the continued torture that the Black community experiences with law enforcement, it all is intersected. And that's the reason why we really should all be standing together in this fight.
Schaffner says that one man was detained, then released about 15 minutes later because he could prove that he was a U.S. citizen. As for the others, we're unsure what happened to them or if they are in ICE custody today. Kyle?
Angela, we get a lot of questions from Next viewers about the whole masked roundup kind of thing. I don't know. This could be just me. I fear that like somebody is going to get grabbed by a masked person and they're going to respond with physical force, thinking that they're dealing with a mugger or something like that, and it actually turns out to be a federal agent. Have you heard those concerns from community?
Absolutely, and I just spoke with Andrea from Casa de Paz in that story. We talked about that. She said they're definitely seeing an increase of people. For instance, maybe in the past they wouldn't have identification or a badge. Now we're seeing where people are covering their faces, and naturally that would add to a lot of confusion, especially when we're talking about people, in some cases, especially students that we've seen across the country, right, Kyle, where, for instance, their immigration status is being revoked and they don't even know. And then all of a sudden you have people in masks coming to get them.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't know that they're a target for apprehension, then they're grabbed by a masked man. You can imagine how disconcerting that would be. Angela McCall, thank you very much. I struggled with whether to say this here, whether it's my place. I'm just going to say it. Colorado state legislators are preparing to roll back government transparency again. A slowdown in releasing public records. They've carved out a special exception for journalists. That shouldn't lead journalists to be silent on this. In my view, This is bad legislation that could even be dangerous because it gives hundreds of government officials the ability to make their own decisions about who is or is not a journalist, and therefore gets that special, faster access to public records. I don't want government officials to have that power. I don't want a favor from the government. I don't want special, faster access. I want the public to see what its government is doing, whether it is you or me asking for those records. We both have the same right to them. That's why they're called public records. This bill is supported by powerful interests, basically a ton of agencies that have to release public records and say that they get too many of these requests. 55 lobbyists have registered in support of this bill. 2 have registered as opposed. This bill just passed with nearly every Democrat in favor except for 2, and Republicans mostly opposed. They're now preparing to override Democratic Governor Jared Polis's veto of the bill. He tried to kill the bill, saying he was concerned about rolling back transparency and allowing government to pick favorites in terms of who is a journalist. I agree with the governor on that. But there's plenty that I disagree with the governor on, and journalists should not be in a position to be asking for approval or favors from government officials. I don't want any government official to have a law allowing them to play favorites with public records. I don't want anybody put into the slow lane for public records requests, journalist or not. I want public records in Colorado to remain public records because it is your right to know what your government is doing. Pope Francis, who died this morning, was the first Latin American pope. He preached acceptance and peace around the world. He focused in particular on the plight of migrants, and his progressive reforms for his church led him to clash with the conservative views of the Catholic Archdiocese in Colorado. The Vatican says that the Pope suffered a stroke and went into heart failure today. He was a history maker in many ways. First Pope from the Americas, first Jesuit Pope. He invited debate around some of the church's most rigid issues like divorce and the role of women. And he became known for his outreach to marginalized communities like LGBTQ folks and immigrants. That outreach resonated with the president of Regis University, the school's first Hispanic president, who met the Pope last year.
He brought humor, he brought to our conversation the importance and central role of prayer, but he also acknowledged the importance of tending to those in need, to be present to those at the margin, and to be present in a way that allows us to build bridges to our community.
In Denver today, mourners gathered in prayer at the Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. Denver's Archdiocese had a complicated relationship with Pope Francis. Today, Archbishop Samuel Aquila praised Pope Francis's, quote, special emphasis on seeking out the lost and marginalized. But Aquila's diverged from some of the Pope's more progressive teachings in the past and supported efforts to deny pro-choice politicians the sacrament of communion. Suburban poverty and hunger are a bit less hidden thanks to what you just did, raising more than $50,000 for Secor Cares, which runs a free food market that serves folks in Douglas, Arapahoe, and Elbert counties. As we approach the 5th anniversary of your Word of Thanks weekly microgiving campaigns, we are also coming up on $15 million raised for nonprofits across Colorado. You created that out of nowhere with your $5 donations week after week after week. So where do we head next? Tell me about the nonprofit projects in your community and how we might help. If the finances check out, leadership's strong, there's a solid plan on how to use our donations for good, they may be featured right here in the future. Email your ideas to next@9news.com or text NEXT 303-871-1491.
When I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I was in a state of pain for a long time.
Patients with neurological issues are finding relief, and not just that, in games of ping pong. And Boulder lands some fire prevention promises from a big utility provider 3 years after the Marshall Fire. The city of Boulder says a new agreement with Xcel Energy would give the city 3 years of priority status to get wildfire safety improvements. The city and Boulder County blame an Xcel power line for contributing to the Marshall Fire in 2021. Boulder says the deal with Xcel would be part of the company's $2 billion wildfire mitigation plan filed last June. This plan would be funded by a rate hike to customers and would speed up the installation of more fire-resistant equipment, improve communication on planned outages, and provide better data to help cities respond when there's a high fire risk. State regulators still need to sign off on the agreement later this year.
And fire danger is something we're talking about with the windy, warm weather we're seeing as a weak weather system crosses northern Colorado. Should have a pretty sunset with the clouds that this system has brought in. 70s in Denver today, 80s to the south. In spite of all of that moisture we saw over the holiday weekend, these gusty, downsloping winds are starting to take a lot of that moisture out of the atmosphere. So red flag warnings continue for northeast Colorado till 7 o'clock. Included in the warning also portions of the western slope. We have a weather system that's crossing Colorado, the parent low to the north. But once this system pushes east, things will settle down. A few showers showing up on radar, but not a lot of that moisture is making it to the ground. And that looks to be the trend as we'll see some clearing skies overnight, a mostly sunny day tomorrow, and then a stray shower late in the afternoon. And so this temperature trend really, comfortable with a stray foothill shower. We'll see temperatures in the 70s Tuesday and Wednesday, cooler Thursday and Friday with a chance of showers and thunderstorms heading into a mild and dry weekend.
These are my peers, and these are my Parkinson community.
And the Pingpong, that's their latest form of treatment. That's next. Pingpong has turned into an unconventional form of therapy for Coloradans with neurological conditions like Parkinson's or MS. We went to a table tennis club in Denver to learn more about neuropong.
Ping-pong. A simple game. As a verb, it means to move back and forth, or it means between different states.
I was diagnosed in July of 2011.
Overwhelming.
Just about every person in this room has been pinged with Parkinson's, and it puts them in a different place.
I asked the question, am I going to die?
Joseph in 2011.
I have Parkinson's.
Dave within the last 2 years.
When I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I was in a state of ping for a long time. Right, left.
And Antonio Barbera, who started Neuropong. A few years back, he recognized the nuances of ping pong could help those with neurological conditions.
Ping pong is just a game to play more with your brain and with your emotions.
Barbera believes the skills necessary to hit that little white ball, or to even set yourself up to hit that little white ball, will put you in a better mood and put you on the move with people like you.
I like hitting that little ball, and I like being able to hit it in a place that I want it to be. And that's a skill. You work hard at that.
This is not a Parkinson's pity party.
We, the people that have Parkinson, can play a game that wasn't necessarily designed for us in the first place, but we can play it well.
Ping pong, with the help of this group, sounds the same, but with a little different meaning.
Looking at the face of the participant to the program and see a smile makes my day.
Thanks to our Tom Cole for that story. Huge stack of your feedback today. I'll sort through Have the Best next. Keith writes in tonight, law enforcement wears masks in situations like this because they're also community members concealing their identities for their safety. Steve in Broomfield says, Kyle, I'm a law-abiding U.S. citizen with a concealed carry permit. He says, if a masked man jumps me, I'm coming up shooting. See, that's what I'm afraid of happening in the community. That's bad for everybody. A number of you wrote in with the same concern. Joe said, God help the person who shoots first. It will happen. We got to figure out a better way.